Now that we've looked a little bit at how to distinguish between the blocks and the factors and levels, let's go ahead and fully define a randomized block experiment. So a randomized block experiment uses comparison of two or more treatments. So that's the same as the other experiment that we looked at, the randomized comparative. But where it's different is first the subjects are going to be split into blocks based on a similar characteristic, and then the set of treatments will be randomly assigned for each block. So what that means is each block is going to receive the same set of treatments. So it's kind of a little bit like doing the same experiment over and over again for each separate block. So this is going to allow us to draw separate conclusions about each block. And then the results from the blocks can be compared to each other. So we can look and see if we have an overall pattern or if the pattern is specific to each group. This allows us to see the differences caused by the treatments more clearly. And in technical terms, randomly assigning subjects in the blocks to the treatments helps average out the effects of the remaining lurking variables and allows an unbiased comparison of treatments. So let's take a look at what this design is going to look like. So we're still going to start out with our subjects, or if we're using non-human samples, then that would be experimental units. We do still want to talk about whether it's a random sample or not, but then the next step before we get into the treatments is to split your sample into blocks. And typically those blocks are not randomly assigned. Usually this is some sort of innate characteristic to your sample or your participants. And so typically not randomly assigned, although occasionally it can be. Now, once you have them in the blocks, you're going to repeat that experiment, all those treatments for each block. So if I was testing that a medication or a placebo to see if people get better, then I have that group of 100 women. I'll split it into 50 and 50 and randomly assign them. So that's where our random is going to come in. And then one of them will get the medication and one will get the placebo. And then I'll repeat the same exact thing with the group of men. So I'll split them in half randomly, and then half will get the medication and half will get the placebo. So the idea here in this middle section where we're working with the explanatory variables, this is the thing that we're manipulating. Each block is going to get the same set of treatments. You want to make sure you know about the randomly assigned, yes or no, because that'll give you your cause and effect. You want to think about how many subjects are in each treatment group. Typically, we split them pretty evenly, but sometimes you might do something different, and that would be told to you in the setup for the problem. So if it's not stated, then we just split them up evenly. The factor and levels and treatments are things we've already talked about a bit. And then the response variable, so that third or final part of the diagram. So you're actually going to compare each block individually. So this really is like doing several mini experiments and then comparing your overall findings across the experiments. So we'll take the 100 women and see how they did with the medication and placebo. We'll take the 150 men and we'll see how they did with the medication and placebo. And then we're going to look and see if there's an overall pattern. So first you compare within the blocks, and then you look for that overall pattern. So this is how our randomized block experiment diagram is going to look. Come back in the next video and we'll do one together.